Hi, humans. Mandion Astral Oracles. We're going to talk more about astrology, karma, channel Metatron on the subject, get some stuff about metaphysics in. So looking forward to that. But first off, thank you to Tony, to Natalie, and to Jennifer for your generous contributions over at Coffee. And thank you so much to Sophia and Laurie for also signing up and I'm looking forward to it. You can also just follow over there. That won't cost you anything, and I will occasionally be sharing content there instead of here. There's already some over there you can see if you want to. And then you can also follow my work with the natural spirits, other stuff. Over at Mind the Wild, my other YouTube channel, where I engage with these spirits that inhabit the physical world that we also live in. So maybe see you there. I hope so. Or otherwise, thank you for being here, sharing, liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. Down to business. Astrology. Astrology is interesting because it's in a modern sense, right? It's a sense of expanded geography. We could say it's a designation of the very specific time-space coordinates that we each occupy at our moment of entering into this form, this lifetime. And I think that's spiritually a very interesting nuance and system to work with, because it of course is also somewhat in contradiction to the great spiritual truth that we are all one and part of this very interconnected, interdependent web where everything is feeding into other circumstances and everything is essentially inseparable. But there is, of course, the physical circumstance that we are essentially all occupying very different space-time coordinates, and that is the very evident reason for why we can even be an individual. And someone whose opinion, perspectives I treasure, once explained it to me as it's like a quantum computer. So it's this sophisticated system of data points that you can use to map out we could almost say the limits or the possible twists and turns of where the individual personality will go and unfold itself in the world. And as a channeler, I think it's incredibly interesting, because it seems that no matter who you work with, they do have we all seem to have sort of specific outlines that we can follow in this life. So there are things that are simply out of our reality, out of our interest, that won't appeal to us. Like, I don't think I'll ever get into sports or something. That's just it doesn't at all compute or align with my system of being. And there are of course other people who like that's their major passion, and that seems to be something that just speaks to them in deeply meaningful ways, and within which they have the opportunity to expand and explore themselves. And I'm also quite interested in that's something I'm really pondering, without coming up with a definite explanation for it, is the sense of what is the symbolic overlay of this. What's this weird phenomenon that I, at least personally, have been experiencing, where it seems that there are coordinates, significances in your outside world that matches up with your inner reality and with your birth configuration. So something that I found incredibly weird was, for years, my favorite album was Tom Waits' Rain Dogs. And then I was listening to it once and looked it up, and I saw it came out September 29th, 1985, which is the day I was born. And that was a Sunday, so it actually, I then found out, came out the other day. But that was the date I was given, which I found kind of weird. Then I think before that, then for years, my favorite album was Aquemini by Outkast, which also came out on my 13th birthday. It turned out, so also September 29th. And then I've been into this indie rapper called Great and Square, who's been doing something he called the Kardashev scale, a quadrilogy that he planned already 10 years ago. And it was 7 years since he made something the last time. And I've really been like, why, what happened to you, dude? Like, you used to be cool. And then it showed up on the evening of my birthday, this September 28th. So I'm really just pondering, like, what is it with them? Because I'm not that much into music. I really have like favorite albums or things I wait for to come out in that way. There's plenty of stuff to explore out there. So I've really been puzzled by this fact that, like, how does this align with my birthday? Because of course it's they didn't they didn't consider that with setting the date right. It's a part of this very weird super dimensional computational device where significance seems to come into our personal experience, but to line up with a lot of outer circumstances. And I'd actually be very interested. I'm always interested to hear these experiences from people. Like, where do you have these experiences? Do you have these experiences? How do they express themselves? That your, let's say, astrological themes, and maybe even down to your birthday, your name, these configurations somehow seem to be mirrored in the outside reality in ways that are mystical, strange, and perplexing. And I think often astrology can be a way of trying to reduce the complexity, make us sort of accessible as a system of more definite energies feeding into our system. And that can be very helpful, because where are the boundaries between us and the infinite? That's of course a question. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Metatron, who can hopefully offer some interesting perspectives on this, the divine architect, how it is that consciousness is constructed and embedded in the physical, and why astrology is relevant and interesting for us. So thank you for being here, for watching. Bless your beautiful hearts. Much love out there. Metatron speaks, and I address you from a point where there are no stirrings in the physical. There are no changes in reality. Everything is spinning around us, but we are the central cog in that wheel. We are seated at the center of existence, being, as it were, an extension of the divine principle, the divine circumference of everything, the innermost part of everything. We are seated here, arranging, coordinating, making happen without happening ourselves. That is, there is a placidity and a stillness that I bring forward to you. There is a cessation of karma that you feel when you approach the heavens, when you approach these angelic infinite spaces. Therefore, it has seemed prudent and pertinent to the person propositioning us this day that I would explain something about the arrangements of your physical reality. What are these different layers that are difficult for the human mind, as a mind focused in a singular physical being, to comprehend and understand? Indeed, what is it that makes you, as an infinity unto yourself, as someone who is also seated at the highermost level of your existence, alongside us in this immovable center of the infinite realms? How is it that you, infinity itself moves into this multitude of beings and species. First off, your confusion around these principles, they arise not only from these karmic principles of energies feeding into you, circumstances already arising that may be carrying your attention off into different focus points of happening, happenstance, and physicality. But it also arises, this confusion of yours, from the temporal restriction that is set up as an parameter around your developing awareness. So this could be likened to that plant that climbs too quickly, and therefore you have to, for a while, support its stem so it can gain its own rigidity and thereby begin to freely shoot upwards and outwards. So the dimension of time is restricted in its capacity, in its ability to flex with the other movements of being, of mind. There is a rigid quality to this idea of back and forward, this idea of memory as linear, this idea of the ruler of time that you are moving along that drives you from a beginning point to an end point. But this then allows for you to grow more comfortable in understanding many of the physical dimensions. So you may see, if you look at human history, these developments, that it would have been hard for you to explore the physical realms, your capabilities, technologies, learning to walk, learning to ride, learning to sail, learning to fly. These things would have been very difficult if you were at the same time able to move in time, such as higher dimensional beings still in the physical are. Notice then that this is the great altercation of your vibration that you are experiencing at the moment, and where assistant entities, guides as you sometimes call them, they have been resonating with you at a level where you can communicate openly with their frequency. Here we are talking about, for instance, the hybrid program, the Asasani, the Yael, other beings, such as often the Pleiadians, Lyrans, of other beings coming through to you from these six-dimensional spaces. They are very, very aware of the multiplicity of time. And so, from their perspective, they are able to remain in a physical body while they are still choosing freely which spaces they want to be in. So the idea here would be that there is an ideal point for every energy body. There is an ideal point for every configuration of this energy body as it moves between lifetimes, that can only be honored by a specific point in the time space. So when you incarnate, when you face into a birth to death experience, what you are doing is that you are by necessity selecting between fairly few options that actually match up with the experiences and the frequencies that you are already holding and that you are seeking to further expand, elaborate on, process, and grow from. Therefore, in this perspective at least, this type of coincidental occurrence or feedback of, as our friend here was describing, this idea that then certain music that has appealed to and meant a lot to him in his life saw its own birth or its own meeting with the world at large at the same time as his physical body, his experience did. That is not in any way strange, because in this energetic reality, the correspondence pattern of that music also aligning itself in deep and meaningful ways in its increment towards completion. It is also navigating towards an endpoint that is similar to the incremental energies within this individual as its energy body moves from lifetime to lifetime. So from a perspective from the 5D onwards, this would be completely natural. That is, we would see nature as grotesquely distorted, weird, and out of joint if things were able to happen without this being the case. Because that would mean that incarnation could take place without certain frequencies being present to accommodate that, without there being a max and a mix and a match of the external and the internal. So you may notice that one of the reasons that these beings are so fond of communicating with you is from their more selfish vantage point, that they take great pleasure in trying to understand this perspective, much as you take great pleasure in the examinations of the distorted, of strange horrors, of weirdness, of the grotesque expressed in ways that are still similar to your fundamental experience. This is a deep realization that you are moving into, but you will notice that it becomes more and more evident and self-evident in your life as you move into states of higher trust, self-reliance, of these states of higher vibrational being, as it is sometimes understood and expressed. But it is essentially you shedding these layers of dissonance, such as negative emotions, such as doubt, such as contempt for yourself or other parts of existence. Those are to us essentially components of the same. We can illuminate this circumstance then of astrology by taking this logic out a step further. That is, that then you will see that this is a type of interstellar and interplanetary geographical placement, that not only are you born in a certain place on your planet, which in its configurations of the time space also feeds into your body. What are the circumstances of light there? What is the humidity level? How is cold and darkness in interplay with heat and light in this space? What are the other life forms occupying it? Which type of foodstuffs does this environment bring forward and feed into your organism? But that these geographical locations that determine you, that they also decide not only for, let us say, what atmospheric fluctuations that your body gets used to, but that this determination is also connected to the world at large, the universe at large. And so it is that the planets essentially configure the flow of the grander energy of the core of the galaxy, the greater interplanetary or interstellar web of light configurations that move into your solar system constantly from the placement of the constellations, that the planets then on the level of this solar system determine what kind of configurations are allowed for, which energies are flowing in. So you have the position of the Earth in relation to the Sun. You have the position of the Sun in relationship to other stars and constellations. You have the relationship of the planets in its position in relationship to other stars primarily, but also the greater gravitational field that is produced by the galactic center. And this, the entire solar system, is of course then also influenced by. So what you have learned and determined mapping out this system of astrology through eons untold, that is, you may also realize that astrology is not a discipline that could have been conceived of in the quite brief instance of time that went between the culture of Babylon, where your current system arises in its more present form, and then this now moment, but that these movements of the constellations, these energies, they have been mapped out by sages through many, many cycles, many repetitions of human civilization. And even though your present state of civilization is quite unique in this developmental cycle, there have been, with approximately 12,000 years of space between these eras, there are these rinse and repeat cycles of one era rising, culture, human understanding, moving forward and being created there. And then these circumstances then unraveling and moving into what seems a kind of ruinous state for humankind. So you could say, boom and bust cycle of human development is one that has been going on for approximately 200,000 years. And you may find that this is one of the few great legacies that are passed down to you from civilizations that are deeply ancient, that they understood the energetic influences of the night sky. This is the mapping of your physical universe. And so if you wish to understand what specific energy configurations you had already become so much in resonance with, what specific imbalances your energy body was in resonance with when it last left its previous incarnational state, you can do nothing better than to pull up your horoscope and begin to examine what energies are here karmically flowing into this experience, what are these outer circumstances that are determining, delineating, and defining my experience as a physical body in this life, in this movement forward of existence. That is what I, Metatron, divine architect, right hand to the infinite consciousness that permeates all things, creator from this hand of physical universes, untold in number, I bid you farewell with blessings, with gratitude for the curiosity and inquisitiveness that you put forward in exploring these physical universes of infinite creation, and with the deepest love of divine source emanating from eternity to the now, to the you. Peace. I very much appreciated that message myself. I hope, speaking of physical imbalances, it's there's just a lot of noise in my background environment in Italy. So I hope that, like, when my irritation arises of the washing machine going or something, that it doesn't fit, that it doesn't feed into to these messages. And I don't know if you pick up on that. I hope not. Um, but I couldn't help but saying that, because that's of course also just a part of these miniature configurations, and if all is from a higher perspective, everything is a creation of our higher self, then these are of course also lessons that allow me to expand my awareness and grow a little more patient with this dense physical world of occasional resistance. Um, so much love to you out there, no matter where you find yourself in the zodiac. I hope you find yourself on a happy path today.